I'm Marty Nemko. Maybe I'm just a kid, but even though I'm old, I like being read to. So I thought maybe you would like it if I read to you. Well, I write a lot of 2-minute stories, you know, the kind of stories that are just long enough for when you're on the pot or the few minutes before you turn out the light to go to bed. So I've picked out a few stories for you, and I'm going to read them to you. And Tahachi here, we'll see if he tolerates it. If he jumps down, it means he didn't like a story. But anyway, without further ado, this first one is called The Finger Painting. Despite a college degree in English literature, I had the world's most boring job. I worked in a ballpoint pen manufacturing plant. My job was to monitor the machine that puts the ink into the thin plastic tube and then inserts the tip. Every night, I come home, see my 3-year-old daughter, Athena, and I wonder, is that all there is? But one night, unexpectedly, I found that the answer to that was no. Athena showed me the finger painting she did that day in preschool. Like a good parent, I said, wow. But I thought it looked like every other preschool finger painting and then joked to myself, it's the sort of crap that they put in museums of modern art. And that was the light bulb. I remember visiting an art museum and the docent telling a story about each picture, even the weird abstract pictures. What if I made up a good story about Athena's finger painting? My professor said I was a good writer. Well, I tried to put that to work, and here is what I wrote in submitting her finger painting to the Valley Museum of Modern Art. In our ever-accelerating tech whiz-bang lives, we crave a bit of simplicity. So I return to that most primal of our artistic experiences, finger painting. As the subject, I turn to the most foundational of our linguistic acquisitions, the alphabet letter. I chose the letter N for its aesthetic, and because it's the first half of the word no. I then distorted a second N, representing the entropy our world is facing with climate change and terrorism amid the myriad existential threats. I chose rose red because the rose is our most aesthetic flower, and purple because it represents a color widely associated with marginalized people, per the book and movie The Color Purple, as well as LGBTQIA+. The name of the painting is No. The museum not only hung No, but it was added to a collection of activist dystopian art that went on tour, including to the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. The New York Times wrote a glowing review, and after, I received dozens of calls begging to purchase the painting, which went to auction at Sotheby's and sold for $1.2 million. My agent tells me to create just one a year, what she calls manufactured scarcity, which should give Athena and me an annual 7-figure income for life. Anyway, that's the finger painting, a little bit of a skewer of abstract modern art. The next story is called Chicken! I worked in a chicken plant. You get used to the smell and the noise, but it's cold in there, and when you get old, you get cold. So I retired. I got bored pretty quick, but I had an idea. What if I wrote to CNN and asked them to come down to Arkansas and I'll give them a tour around? They like doing stories on poor folk. They ignored my letter, but I made a little video on my phone showing them the kill room, the workers, what we call the dressing room, and wouldn't you know it, CNN came down. After it came on the TV, I got a call from some politics guy in Washington, D.C., asking me if I'd come to the presidential convention and say a few words. I said no, but my wife screamed at me, "You are such a damn chicken." That's kind of funny for a chicken worker, isn't it? But anyway, she pointed her finger at me. "You are a talker. You talk my ear off, and now you are going to talk the ears off of those folk in Washington. You are going, and I am coming with you to make sure you get on that damn plane, you chicken." Well, I think you can see I didn't have no choice but to go. So I said a few words about the good working folk who don't get much attention, but are pretty important. I mean, would people like to do without chicken? After I left the stage, a guy in a fancy suit asked if I might run for Congress against somebody he called, I think it was called a vulnerable incumbent. Anyway, I had no idea what that was, but what the heck? I was retired, I had nothing to do. They coach me and they send campaign people down from up north and they spend a lot of money on commercials. They gave me a slogan, Chicken Charlie won't lay an egg. And when you know it, I won. By just a chicken feather, but I won. Congress? Me? I had no earthly idea what to do there. So I just mainly listened, and I was grateful for the advice those people in the suits kept giving me. I voted like they told me to, although a couple of times I couldn't understand what I was voting for. And CNN even did another thing on me. Would you believe the CNN interviewer, and she was right nice, asked me if I might run for president. Anyway, that's chicken. The next story is Puff the sequel. In the song Puff the Magic Dragon, the boy grew up, went away, and Puff that mighty dragon sadly slipped into his cave. A few months later, by that sea in a town called Honolulu, the girl, who was picking up seashells by the seashore, saw a cave. Scared, but more curious than scared, peeked inside and took another step, and another, and more steps, and then she saw, sleeping, Puff. Puff opened his eyes, and the dragon opened his eyes wider, and the girl took a step back. But Puff whimpered, and she stopped. Puff gave the kindest, most grateful look. After all, it had been months since the boy left for college. The girl took a step toward Puff, and Puff smiled. So she took another step, and then Puff swished his tail toward her. She backed away, but Puff whimpered again, and she stopped. Gently, Puff wrapped his tail around her. She worried, will he crush me like a boa constrictor? But her intuition said no, and Puff, of course, didn't crush her, but merely gave her a Puff hug. And so, as Puff had with the boy, they frolicked in the autumn mist. But soon it was time for the girl to go to college. And so, as the boy did, she hugged Puff and left. And the dragon bowed his head, crept back to his cave, and cried. But soon the girl returned. She missed Puff, but this time, rather than frolic on the beach, she took his mighty paw and brought him, using Allied van lines, to college. Of course, on campus, everyone was terrified, and campus security sounded the sirens, the alarms. But the girl explained, whereupon security said, there's only one place on campus we will allow a trial hour, the safe space. Puff more than passed the trial, and within a month replaced the chicken as the college's mascot. Puff pranced before, at halftime, and at the end of every winning football, basketball, and even volleyball game. The college even renamed the stadium, without even, like most, naming rights requiring a donation. The stadium will evermore be called Puff the Magic Stadium. So that's Puff the Magic Dragon, the sequel. The next story is The Sugar Plum Fairy and Me. I've never fit in. Most kids are louder than I am, and I don't like school. Much of it is too easy, and worse, some of it makes me feel bad about who I am, so I hide a lot. I read, I watch TV, and most of all, I play the piano by ear, including Christmas carols. My favorite thing to do is to go to rehearsals at the Kennedy Center. At rehearsals, when a piano is on stage, the janitor sometimes let me play something. And the last time, because Christmas is coming up, I played Silent Night. Today was especially exciting to me about going. It was the dress rehearsal for the Nutcracker, which opens tomorrow. As pre-show, that's the half hour when the audience is coming in, instead of piped music, they're having a harpsichordist. So the rehearsal started with her playing O Holy Night. But when she got to the loud part, we heard a crack. A key had broken. I guess harpsichords are fragile. She stopped playing and told a man who was sitting with a clipboard in the second row of the mainly empty auditorium that she couldn't go on, but would get another harpsichord for tomorrow's performance. The janitor got up and whispered something to the man, who then said, "Hey kid, you there. Would you do me a favor and play me just a minute of some Christmas song so we can run through the transition to the ballet? Don't worry about the broken key, just play." I was scared, but how could I turn that down? I sat down at the harpsichord, took a deep breath, started to play Silent Night, and everyone got quiet. I guess they didn't think it was too terrible. I was sure the man would stop me after just a few seconds, but he didn't. He let me play it all the way through. And then everyone, the dancers, the janitor, even the man, applauded. I felt embarrassed. I hurried down the stairs and back to my seat, where I felt comfortable next to the janitor. He looked me in the eye, put his arm on my shoulder, and got a little teary. After the rehearsal, I started to walk out, but one of the dancers, the Sugar Plum Fairy, came up to me. "You were amazing!" I didn't know what to say. All I could think of was, "Would you like to go for ice cream?" She smiled and took my hand. Anyway, that's the Sugar Plum Fairy. Next story is Sam's last concert. In the wings, Sam could hear the concertmaster tuning up the orchestra. "Damn, my hand is shaking more than usual. It's a bad Parkinson's day. Plus, it's my last concert. I'm nervous. I'm glad I decided to play the Grieg piano concerto, but with these hands, nothing is easy." Sam had been a concert pianist his whole life. At age 11, he finished 4th in the Midwest Regional Young Artists Competition, and now at age 83, had performed 45 concerts, including one with the Napa Symphony. He thought, true, that was just the Napa Symphony's summer festival when lots of the A players are on vacation, but still. Somehow, I wish my ex-wife were here. How could she have dumped me? I still wish she were here tonight. Do I play it safe? A lot of note mistakes would make the audience think I stayed at it too long, like those star baseball players who would rather hit 200 than retire. Or do I go for a home run? A chance at a write-up in the Napa Register. Roseman finishes with a flourish. The conductor gave Sam a forced smile, and Sam strode on stage. This is it. Deep breaths. Deep breaths. Damn, my hands are shaking more. Oh, I'm taking too long. I got to get out there. Stand up straight. Old men hunch. Stride. Don't shuffle. But Sam could manage only to shuffle on stage. He hung on to the piano with one hand as he bowed his head to the audience. If I tried to bow from the waist, I could fall. And he sat down at the piano. I've had this moment so many times, but this is different. Sam used his old trick of adjusting the seat up and then back down again, not because it needed adjusting, but to buy a little more time to ground himself before the moment of truth. And Sam began, and took every reasonable risk he could, and most of the time he won. Yes, his boldness caused a few note mistakes, but only the ignorant or mean-spirited could criticize his exciting performance. It was inspiring at any age, but for an 83-year-old with advanced Parkinson's, it gives me the chills just to tell you about it. And yes, Sam got not just the usual obligatory extended applause, bestowed as much to protest classical music's dying popularity as to acknowledge the performer, but fervent applause. And then, yes, a standing ovation. Not a charity ovation, a heartfelt one. And Sam, who usually was too shy to look at the applauding audience, and so would stare at the back wall, soaked in the smiling, standing people. Then he sighed and plodded off stage for what he thought was the last time. Sam shuffled into his dressing room, closed the door, and dropped into a chair. Ah, I survived. I didn't embarrass myself. Well, I can't go to the reception. That's like a retirement party where everyone tries to make light of it being the beginning of the end. My end. Then there was a knock on the door. Daddy! His daughter opened the door and gushed, "You were amazing! You were really amazing! Come on, they're all waiting for you!" Sam knew there was no avoiding it, so he trudged downstairs. When he arrived, the chatter morphed into applause. He thought, "No one likes long speeches, and nothing ungracious. I should be a good boy." But he couldn't resist saying what he really felt. "Honestly, I can't stand the thought this will be my last performance." And he teared up. Just then, a 4-year-old toddled up to him. "Do you want to play in my class?" And Sam Roseman went on to play more concerts than he had in his entire life, in preschools and elementary schools, first just locally and then around the country. He never got paid, indeed had to pay his travel expenses, but he didn't begrudge it. "I can't think of a better way to spend my money than to teach young kids to love classical music and that old people aren't necessarily irrelevant." Anyway, those are the stories I wanted to read for you today. I'll be doing more next month, and I hope you'll join me for that. Again, those stories are from my book, Light, short stories about life's brighter side. In any event, thank you very much for watching. I am Marty Nemko.